the most powerful man on earth, the conqueror of empires, the living god King Alexander the Great, stands in the blazing Corinthian sun, surrounded by his generals and bodyguards. He has just heard that a strange philosopher lives in the city, a man who fears no one and owns nothing but a cloak, a bowl, and a lantern. Alexander, curious and perhaps a little amused, decides to pay him a visit. He finds the man lying naked in a large ceramic jar, basking like a lizard. Alexander steps forward, towers over him, and speaks the words that would echo for 2,000 years. "I am Alexander, king of Macedon, lord of Asia. Ask any favor, and it shall be granted." The man in the jar squints up at the conqueror blocking his sunlight and answers with 6 words that changed history. "Then stand out of my light." The crowd gasps. The generals reach for their swords. Alexander could have him executed on the spot. Instead, he laughs and says, "If I were not Alexander, I would wish to be Diogenes." Who was this man who humiliated the greatest conqueror of antiquity and walked away untouched? How did a homeless beggar become the only person Alexander ever envied? And why, 2 millennia later, do we still quote him when we want to tell power itself to move aside? That man was Diogenes of Sinope, the founder of the Cynic philosophy, the original punk of the ancient world, the dog who bit kings and philosophers alike. Today, you are going to discover why he threw away everything most people spend their lives chasing, why he lived in a jar, why he masturbated in the marketplace, why he carried a lantern in broad daylight looking for an honest man, and how he proved that true freedom is not something you win on battlefields, but something you claim by refusing to bow. By the end of this video, you will understand why Diogenes is not just a crazy old man from history books. He is the ultimate stress test for every value we have been taught to worship: money, status, comfort, reputation, even civilization itself. And you will have to ask yourself one uncomfortable question. If Diogenes walked into your life tomorrow and looked at everything you own, everything you fear losing, everything you are working yourself to death to protect, what would he say to you? Ready to meet the man who defeated Alexander the Great without lifting a finger? Then stay with me, because what you are about to hear will make you question everything you thought made a life worth living. Diogenes was born around 412 BC in Sinope, a wealthy Greek colony on the Black Sea. His father was a banker who minted coins, so the boy grew up surrounded by money, literally. One day, everything changed. Ancient sources disagree on the details, but the most common story is that father and son were caught defacing the currency, hammering the faces off coins, or shaving the edges. Instead of hiding in shame, Diogenes consulted the oracle at Delphi. The priestess told him, "Alter the political currency," meaning corrupt the accepted values of society. He took it literally and philosophically at the same time. Exiled from Sinope, stripped of citizenship and fortune, he arrived in Athens as a penniless refugee. Most people would have panicked. Diogenes smiled. He had just been handed the perfect opportunity to live the oracle's command. He looked at the richest city in Greece and saw a circus of pretension. Politicians in purple robes bragging about their ancestry. Merchants counting gold they would never spend. Philosophers writing endless books while living in luxury. Citizens obsessed with reputation. terrified of what others might whisper. Diogenes decided his mission was to bark at the whole show, because cynic comes from the Greek kynikos, meaning dog-like, and he proudly accepted the insult. He threw away his bowl after watching the child drink from his hands. Why own something nature already provides? He slept in the temples or in a giant storage jar abandoned in the marketplace. When people mocked him for living like an animal, he replied that animals are happier than men because they don't invent problems for themselves. He ate raw meat, urinated on those who insulted him, defecated in the theater, and yes, masturbated openly in the agora. When shocked onlookers asked what he was doing, he answered, "If only I could satisfy hunger by rubbing my belly the same way." But these were not random stunts. Every act was a philosophical grenade. By doing in public what everyone did in private, he exposed the hypocrisy of social rules. Shame, he argued, is not natural. It is a leash society puts on you. The truly shameless person is free. He once walked through Athens in broad daylight, carrying a lit lantern. People laughed. "Have you lost your mind?" He answered, "I am looking for an honest man." Not because honesty is rare, but because everyone lies about who they really are. The rich pretend they are not afraid of death. The powerful pretend they are not slaves to opinion. The polite pretend they don't have bodies. Diogenes refused to play the game. Even Plato, the most famous philosopher of the age, was not safe. Plato had defined man as a featherless biped. Diogenes walked into the academy holding a plucked chicken and shouted, "Behold Plato's man." Plato quietly added, "with broad flat nails," to his definition. On another occasion, Plato saw Diogenes washing lentils for his dinner and sneered, "If you had learned to flatter the tyrant in Syracuse, you wouldn't have to eat lentils." Diogenes shot back, "And if you had learned to eat lentils, you wouldn't have had to flatter the tyrant." That single exchange contains the entire Cynic revolution. Real philosophy is not about clever words. It is about living in such a way that you never need to bow to anyone. The story everyone remembers happened in Corinth during the summer of 336 BC. Alexander was 20, already king, already unstoppable. He had come to the Isthmian Games, where all the Greek cities gathered, and word reached him that the famous mad philosopher was living just outside the city walls in the Cranian Grove, still in his jar. Alexander dismissed his entourage and walked over with only a few guards. He found Diogenes, sunning himself exactly as the stories describe. The young king, dressed in purple and gold, cast a long shadow across the philosopher's body. The moment was electric. The two most extreme human beings on earth, face to face. One had conquered half the world before breakfast. The other had conquered desire itself. Alexander spoke first, polite but proud. "I am Alexander." Diogenes didn't even sit up. "I am Diogenes the dog." "I have heard of your wisdom," Alexander continued. "Name anything you want. Gold, a palace, a position at my court. It will be yours." Silence. Then the old man shaded his eyes and delivered the most devastating sentence ever spoken to absolute power. "I want nothing from you except for you to step out of my sunlight." The guards froze. One more word, and the philosopher was dead. Alexander's face darkened, then, astonishingly, broke into a smile. He turned to his companions and said the line that guaranteed Diogenes' immortality. "Truly, if I were not Alexander, I would wish to be Diogenes." Why did Alexander envy him? Because In that instant, he saw the truth. He, the conqueror, was a slave to glory, to armies, to the endless need for the next city, the next horizon. Diogenes was a slave to nothing. Alexander needed the world. Diogenes needed only the sun. And even that he could do without if someone stood in the way. Years later, on his deathbed in Babylon, drunk with fever and power, Alexander was asked to whom he left his empire. "To the strongest," he whispered. When the generals asked for a sign, he lifted his hand and let it fall empty. In that final gesture, he proved Diogenes right. All the kingdoms he had bled for slipped through his fingers like sand. Diogenes, meanwhile, died the same year, 323 BC, some say on the very same day. Legend claims he simply held his breath until he turned blue and dropped. Others say he ate raw octopus to prove the body could adapt to anything, and it finally rebelled. When his friends asked how he wanted to be buried, he told them to throw his corpse outside the city walls for the dogs. Shocked, they asked, "Don't you care that beasts will tear you apart?" He answered, "Then put a stick beside me so I can chase them away." "But you'll be dead," they protested. Diogenes smiled. "Exactly. If I'm dead, what do I care what happens to the body?" His friends ignored him and gave him a proper tomb. On it they carved a dog and the words, "Time, even time itself, grows old, but no age can take away the fame of Diogenes." 2,300 years later, the jar is gone, the sunlight is gone, Alexander's empire is dust, yet Diogenes keeps winning. Every time a billionaire dies surrounded by bodyguards and still terrified of losing what he spent his life accumulating, Diogenes wins. Every time a politician is caught in a scandal and claims nobody knew, Diogenes walks past with his lantern and keeps looking. Every time someone tells you that you need a bigger house, a better title, a more impressive profile to be happy, Diogenes is there, rubbing his belly in the marketplace, reminding you that nature gave you everything already. He was not preaching poverty for its own sake. He was demonstrating that the moment you decide what is enough, you become invincible. Money can be taken. Reputation can be destroyed. Health can fail. But no one can take away your decision about what matters. That decision is the only kingdom that cannot be conquered. Modern psychology has spent decades catching up to what Diogenes lived in one lifetime: negative visualization, voluntary discomfort, radical acceptance of the body, rejection of social scripting. These are now sold in expensive retreats and best-selling books. Diogenes did it for free, naked, and usually while insulting the people who would later quote him. He forces the question no one wants to answer honestly. If everything you fear losing tomorrow was taken tonight, who would you still be? Strip away the job, the followers, the savings, the wardrobe, the opinions of strangers, and what is left? Most of us panic at the thought because we have spent years building a self-made of borrowed bricks. Diogenes built nothing, and therefore nothing could be taken from him. That is why Alexander envied him. That is why we still talk about him. The Cynic path is not for everyone. Few people can or should live in a jar. But every person can borrow one small piece of his freedom: the refusal to let external things decide your worth. The courage to ask in every situation, is this rule natural, or did someone invent it to control me? The willingness to endure being laughed at if it means living without chains you placed on yourself. Diogenes did not leave books. He left a life so sharp it still cuts through 2 millennia of noise. And the sharpest cut of all is this: real power is not the ability to command armies. It is the ability to need nothing from anyone, not even the most powerful man on earth. So the next time life blocks your sun, whether it is a tyrant, a boss, a bank account, or your own fear, remember the 9 words that made a God-king step aside. Say them to whatever is casting the shadow, and watch how quickly the world moves when you finally refuse to move for it. If this story shook something loose inside you, if you felt even a flicker of recognition that maybe, just maybe, you have been chasing shadows while the real light was always free, then do one small act of rebellion right now. Hit the subscribe button. Not because I need it, but because every subscription is a quiet declaration that you are ready to keep questioning the things everyone else accepts. Turn on notifications because the next video might be the one that hands you the lantern you have been looking for in broad daylight. Thank you for spending these minutes with the man who beat Alexander the Great by doing absolutely nothing. See you in the sunlight.